what Web 2 did, or what AI, 3D printing, most of the technologies in fourth industrial revolution, what it did to us, it basically gave us an infrastructure, and it skyrocketed our technology growth. But there are so many humanity problems that still remain. And blockchain basically makes sure that all those problems can also be solved. So think of it this way, there are about 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. They can be easily achieved, or the progress can be expedited towards achieving those if we use blockchain. And the reason is that it gives the power back to the community. There are about 1.5 billion people which have been left out of banking. And if you use blockchain, you can actually give the power back to the community and give access of credit and banking to 1.5 billion people, which is basically catering to the bottom billion. So I run a company called 5ire. It's 5ire. It stands for the fifth industrial revolution. It's a concept that I started promoting about 15 years back to prove the thesis that you can actually make more money if you do more good to the world. So the more good you do, the more money you make. I started when I was 16. I built my first company. This is my 9th company. In my first company, it was an edutech venture. So all my companies have been around the space of the fifth industrial revolution, where I wanted to give the power back to the community and work for the masses and prove that sustainability is going to define profitability. What I mean by that is electric vehicles are going to become more profitable than a traditional diesel vehicle, and the same happened with Tesla. If you saw, the valuations went up during COVID. So geothermal is going to, if you use geothermal, you're going to end up making more money if you use coal. So those are the kind of businesses that are going to rule the way or curate the way the world moves, which is going to be in a direction which is not only more abundant, but more importantly, also more green. So all the businesses I built were around the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is the 9th business I've built. It's called 5ire. It started at a tea shop here in Gurgaon. We started in August 2021. So three of us came together to figure out, is there a way where we can build a Web3 infrastructure which is sustainable? So all of you know Ethereum, for instance, there are a lot of consensus that most of the blockchains have used, which is proof of work or proof of stake. When you use proof of work, for instance, I'm not going to get very deep into technicals, but when you use proof of work, so any blockchain, it's an infrastructure like the new internet. So it basically needs a consensus for the blocks to be validated. If you use proof of work as consensus, we figured out that you have to spend more computational power, or you have to spend more energy. What that does, it basically means you have to spend more energy, so you can never be energy efficient. Proof of stake, which is used by other blockchains across the world, what it does is it basically, you need to have more money to get a block rewarded to yourself. So consensus basically rewards validators to put entry into a block. So suppose suppose there are 3 validators, I want to enter something into the block, I want to enter data. The validators, whoever gets to validate, ends up making money. So that's how a blockchain works for people who don't know how blockchain works. So proof of stake, for instance, you have to stake more money to get a block rewarded to yourself. So basically it takes you back to the traditional finance problem that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and you will never be able to solve the problem of financial inclusion, which was a big goal. So what we did, we invented a new form of consensus called proof of benefit in August 2021 last year, where we thought we're going to embed 17 sustainable development goals into the consensus, and we tokenized, or we scraped data from about 650 ESG sources, environmental social governance sources, put them into consensus, and what we got out of it, so we built the world's first mathematical model, which not only measures sustainability, but it rewards sustainability financially. So what that means, if somebody is using geothermal and uses 5ireChain, which is our blockchain, you will be rewarded for using geothermal versus somebody using coal, which means you end up making more money, which takes us back to fifth industrial revolution, that we are trying to create or transition the world from a for-profit economy in the age of fourth industrial revolution to a for-benefit economy in the age of fifth industrial revolution. So we're ideally trying to transition from fourth industrial revolution to the fifth, and transition from a for-profit economy to a for-benefit economy. That's why we built 5ire. So think of us this way, what Google did in Web 1 or what Facebook did in Web 2, we're trying to do similar stuff in Web 3. We're like Google or Web 3, but the difference being we are not only creating a more abundant future, but we are very focused on creating a more greener future. So August 2021 we started. We raised a seed round, a total of $21 million in about 3 months at $110 million valuation, and then we started hiring people. So it was a small team of 6 people. Now we're a team of 110 people. That was our first round. We started testing our product with multiple governments. We currently work with the UP police. We just signed the Goa police now to bring the whole Goa police or make them paperless and bring them on blockchain. Our end goal, of course, as I said, the overarching goal of the company is to impact 1 billion plus people. We signed multiple things. We won a lot of awards. We closed our first round. Then we just raised our Series A round of 100 million, making us India's 105th unicorn. So one of the fastest to become unicorns. So as you know, most of the HR infrastructure, right? So let's keep it specific now to HRs, and the conference focuses most on that. Blockchain has the power to actually reduce the infrastructure cost by about 30%. It's more actually. So that's where we are focused on, and that's why we will be working with multiple companies and multiple governments to reduce the cost. So I've just basically taken one use case here, one that we currently are also testing with, say, a company called Eagle Hunters, which has 120,000 employees. We're bringing all of them on the blockchain, so how it helps. And then we are working with multiple governments. So we are bringing the whole Goa police on the blockchain. What that means, the whole data, the whole employee infrastructure is going to reside on the blockchain, and I'm going to now share in the consequence slides on how it benefits the police department or how it benefits any stakeholder, whether it's a government or a Fortune 500 company. So if you see here, the cross-border payrolls, for instance, right? So currently, if you use a bank, there are about 3 days it takes. So we will be working closely with banks to make that TAT or the turnaround time go lesser, so that the cross-border payments can be made very, very efficiently. There is digital identity of employees. There are a lot of employees who don't have. So basically, if you use digital identity, it's quicker. You can basically, I mean, I'll run you through this in detail, but one big way is the inalterable record. So think of it this way. If somebody joins your organization, a lot of HRs in the room, I'm imagining, if somebody joins your organization, if you put data in the room, so imagine Pratik joining at a timestamp or whatever the date is today at this particular time. It can't be changed. So that means there can be no forgery of data. So 10 years down the line, you can track that I joined XYZ company at this date at this point in time. One of my close friends also got married on the blockchain. What that means is she and her husband, see, they basically put the data, meaning their marriage timestamp on the blockchain. So 10 years from now, you know who her husband was, but whatever it is. So basically the data can't be altered. The digital identity of employees is another big use case that we are currently implementing. So think of it this way. All the virtual credentials that you put are all on the blockchain. So all the academic credentials, for instance. So for instance, if somebody says, I went to Harvard for my MBA in, say, 2011, right? So that data will be stored on the blockchain. So like fast forward 2023, you don't need to hire a company to tell you whether it's true or not, and you don't need to waste so much of money or so much of time. If it's a public ledger, it's a distributed ledger, everything resides in the chain, so the HR can actually track whether the person, what they're saying, the veracity of the claim they're making, if they actually went to an HBS or not. So digital background verification, any background that the person possesses in the past, it can actually be easily be tracked. From the time they are born till date, everything from including birth records, to including date, name change, school, college, whatever they went to, everything, all the data. So think of blockchain as a chain of blocks, right? So every data that is entered on the chain, again, I reiterate, it cannot be changed. There is a validators, and let me tell you, it's very, very secure. Why is it secure? Because there are a lot of validators who need to validate for a block to receive data, which means it's not like a DBMS where you store data, it goes to a cloud. That's not how it works. So there are about 4 validators, for instance. So there is, say, Unilever, there is, say, Procter & Gamble, there is, say, 2 governments. So all 4 have to validate. When they do it, then only the data gets stored. So that means it makes it very, very, very secure. So the biggest piece is here what I'm talking about. A is security, which is huge. B is transparency, C is accountability, and 4th is cost reduction. So those are the big factors that we are working with when we are working with HRs or we are working with multiple governments. One big piece that we're working with Goa Police on, for instance, we're also working with the city of Alliance in the state of Nebraska. We're bringing the whole Nigerian agriculture government on the blockchain. So if you see, we're transferring paper contracts to digital contracts. What that means, it makes the whole state go paperless. Again, it links you back to sustainability. And we use no-code smart contracts. So one big piece here, when I say no-code smart contracts, if you see today, the biggest reason that Facebook, my mom also uses Facebook, right? So I ask her, why do you, so Facebook, you don't know what's going at the back end. You know what's going at the front end. So you just chat on the messenger, you DM somebody and you get a reply. So you don't know what the technology is actually doing at the back. We are trying to do similar stuff with blockchain, which means accessibility to end user. Currently, the biggest reason that blockchain has not been used by the public or masses is because people still don't know how to use the technology. We're trying to solve that problem. We use no-code smart contracts. So although we use Rust as a language and substrate as languages, But you don't need to be, as a customer, as an end consumer, you don't need to know those languages to use the technology. So that's a big, big piece that we have solved in the blockchain that we launched. I already spoke about the cross-border payroll. It's huge and massive. If you see banking, there are a lot of inefficiencies. We're trying to work with the bank so that they can reduce the inefficiencies, specific when it comes to a TAT, when it's turnaround time, so that the payments, cross-border payments, can become seamless and effective, because the biggest piece that blockchain solves, again, through digital identity, is payments, which makes it very, very quick, so the transaction would be much, much faster than what a MasterCard has in a blockchain. But we want to work with banks to solve all the problems of cross-border payroll. Automated tax and audit. So, most of you, end up paying, so like there was the last date for income tax, right? So everybody was filling taxes. Now, if you put all the data on the blockchain, so we are speaking to, for instance, say the GST department in India to get the data on the blockchain. What that does for them, think of it this way. Whole GST data, when you're filing your income tax or you're basically putting your GST, if it comes on the blockchain, it's basically, it can track what the intermediaries are supposed to do, because all the data is fed into a smart contract and it goes into an algorithm. So you can, of course, track all the records. So the data storage or the data tracking becomes very, very easy, and traceability also. So if it's all stored on the chain, you know what ITR you filed 10 years back, 9 years back, 8 years back. You don't need to store it in a DBMS, or you don't need to store it in a cloud where multiple people can see it. If you use a private permission blockchain, it still stays with you because the nodes can be private. Then they're automated, so we use AI to kind of automate the tax that is kind of computed every time. So we use a mixture of AI, machine learning, and blockchain to kind of come up with a structure that basically makes the employer or the HR kind of figure out that how much taxes each of them are supposed to pay, and everything is very, very secure. Again, I reiterate the point of security here, because it's about tax. So it's supposed to be very, very private. You don't need to disclose that this is your private, whatever your income, etc. is. So everything needs to be validated by multiple nodes or multiple stakeholders. When the validators actually validate a block, that's when the data actually enters, is supposed to enter the block, which means there's a lot of security in the whole chain. So the whole employee service records, we're trying to bring them on fire. Our end goal, of course, is to basically cater to the whole billion population in India and bring the whole records on blockchain. We call some Make in India product, but we work with multiple governments across the world. But our biggest core focus is India because of the billion population and since we are all Indians. Verifying employee credentials, this is a big piece. We are also working on the academic credentials piece, working with universities, for instance. So we're working with a lot of universities right now. All the degrees, right? You can't forge your degrees if you put them on the blockchain. So you know who got the degree, when they got it, what time it is, and what the data was stored. And with us being the only sustainable blockchain in the world, it makes it sustainable as well. So we will be working with multiple institutes to all make sure that all the degrees, academic credentials stay on the blockchain, which means there can be no forgery, nobody can lie, etc., etc. Nobody can tamper with the data because it's actually tamper-proof. Tracking employee performance right now. So when you see any organization, the way the system works when they do annual appraisals, for instance, it's so hard, right? There are 3 interviews that are taken, then they need to ask, oh, did you do this in the last quarter? Did you do this in the second last quarter? Blah, blah, blah. We can eliminate all of that. It can be very, very quick because all of that, all the employee performance, if it gets stored in the blockchain, you know what KPIs, key performance indicators the employee did to basically make sure that the employer already knows before the guy or the girl is sitting for the interview. So they already know what basically is supposed to be done when it comes to annual appraisal. So what it does, it basically saves you time, it saves you cost, it makes you more efficient, and basically it also automatically through smart contract, you can actually put it there what appraisal should be there. So it doesn't need to go into a system and then the system doesn't need to approve anything. So the time spent on 3 approvals is all saved. So all of you here have been a part of organizations. So you understand what I'm saying. When you go through 3 approvals, that all goes away when you put all the data on the blockchain. So we are working very closely to track employee performance. We will be working with multiple governments, as I said, and multiple Fortune 500 companies. When you see securing all the employee data, it's very, very secure. I stress the point of security because it's one of the biggest pieces in blockchain. It's because it goes through encrypted data storage, so it's very secure. And also, it basically makes communication between the employer and the employee very, very easy because everything is stored on a distributed public ledger, which means the employee or the employer, they can interact using the blockchain. So it makes makes a two-way communication, which I think I spoke about when I introduced blockchain to you. So this is all about what we do. I would reiterate, I would like to invite all of you guys to be a part of the Web3 revolution. We're trying to create a transition from the current age of fourth industrial revolution in Web2, which has been following a for-profit paradigm, to a Web3 revolution, which will follow a for-benefit paradigm in the age of fifth industrial revolution. We are FIRE. Thank you.
We'll have a, yes. We still have a minute to go for questions if you have any. If anyone has any question, you may please raise your hand. Yes, we'll just get you a mic. We'll request you to kindly just introduce yourself before asking the question. Can we have a mic for the gentleman? Otherwise, I'll give you mine. That's fine.
Sure. I'm Vardhan. Hi, Pratik. Thanks for the talk. That was fantastic. The only question I have is, with the consensus algorithm that you mentioned, how does that compare? How does the transaction time compare with the existing ones? For example, proof of stake or proof of work. How does proof of benefit that you mentioned compare?
Yeah, so our block size is about 4 MB, so it's the lowest that any other blockchain has. So which means that time of interaction of the speed is at least 5 times of the quickest blockchain currently in the world. So we are, our transaction cost is just 1 cent. If you transfer $100 million, we just charge 1 cent. So there's huge cost reduction, and there is like the speed is about 5 times of what happens with other blockchains, because the block size is very, very less.
Got it, thanks. That's great, because with Ethereum and proof of stake, it's starting to get much slower.
Yeah,
so
very slow.
is faster.
And also very expensive.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for just one more question. We have a gentleman,
sure.
a lady at the back.
Hi,
Yes,
I'm Ritika. Thank you for the talk. I had a small question. You know, with all the blockchain being a new technology, and with all the benefits which you mentioned, that it could actually check the background score and everything of a person, how much time will it take to get the existing information uploaded in the blockchain, and what would be the cost involved on it? Because from now on, people can put in the information, but what about the information which is already there?
Okay, I'll tell you a live use case. So we're just trying to get the whole Goa police on the blockchain, which means they use all their existing files, right? So we're taking about 1 year to port about 10,000 records and bring all of the records on the blockchain. Cost, of course, I can share in the room. It's private, but it's way cheaper than what they're paying to other stakeholders for DBMS or for storing data in cloud. So it's way, way cheaper. It's about 40 to 50% cost reduction in any infrastructure when you use Web 2. So if you go from Web 2 to Web 3, you save about 50% of the cost. That's all I can share. But the time, as I said, about 10,000 records, we're taking about 1 year to port all the records, but also it's one of the initial version, then it'll be very, very quick. But also we're taking, like, imagine like we're taking real files, okay, like real files, like how hundreds of pages, the way any police department works. If you go to any police station, so there's a file which has like 200 pages, right? So it's like, oh, he was first, you know, an SHO, then he became ACP, additional ACP. So there are 2 files. One, they basically track the promotions of the police guy. Then in the other, they have a separate, you know, it's the health and everything is tracked. So we're bringing all the records, we're putting that into a digital format, and then we're putting them on blockchain. So that's what we're doing.